What do you think about raising kids today in this world?
On birthdays, we would have our children sit up on the table and we'd put a cape on them and a crown, and we'd all say two nice things about them.
One of my children is speaking at me disrespectfully. I said, "You can't talk to me like that." And they've said, "You're talking to me like that." And I'm like, you're too smart.
And saying, Mom, I like it when you apologize to us, but Daddy never apologizes.
If I were to force you to assign a percentage to nature or nurture, what is your argument?
I love to see our sons sit down and be really gentle with their children. She was older, and I just said, I want you to know how much I love you. I want you to be forever with us, but I realize that you get to choose.
So I gave her a blessing, and she started to cry. She said, "Dad, why am I crying?"
I feel so selfishly uplifted. I feel like a better parent than I was an hour ago.
We're the Valentines, Jamie
And Geneil?
and Geneil. And we live in Harriman, Utah now. Lived here about 10 years, 11 years now.
Mm-hmm.
We spent 40 years in Alaska. I was a high school counselor, and we did most of our family raising in Alaska. Prior to that, I was getting some graduate work, and I married Geneil after my graduate school and swore into the Army got married on a Friday. And then Monday, I swore into the Army. It was Vietnam days, and I was going to be drafted. And so I had signed up to go to Germany, so I wouldn't go to Vietnam, basically. So I married Geneil, and we went to Germany and spent about 2.5 years until our children were actually born in Germany. So that's kind of the start of kind of what happened. Geneil was raised in...
I was raised in Payson, Utah, and had great parents, wonderful, wonderful family. And he was raised in California.
Yeah.
We met at BYU.
Was in the Army, went back to school. After that, found a job in Alaska and went to Homer, decided to stay a year and stayed for almost 40. The reason we left was because all of our children were gone, and they had married people not from Alaska, and they were closer here. One of my sons said, "Well, Dad, we'll always come to Alaska if we can, but it won't be very often, and you're going to miss baseball games, and you're going to miss baptisms, and you're going to miss birthdays." And so we decided, So we're here in Utah. We actually have a son that's in our ward, and another one nearby, a sister daughter, and then another one not too far away. And then 3 of them one's on North Carolina, one's in California.
Albuquerque, too.
And one in Albuquerque. So we just went to a grandma and grandpa's day at one of our grandkids' schools.
Okay, so you've got a kid in Harriman with you, one in North Carolina, Albuquerque, California, and then the other 2 are in Utah as well?
We actually have 3 children in Utah with us. 3 in the state here, and then 3 out of state. So we get to practice traveling as well as staying.
Okay. And so you got married. You went straight to Germany for 2.5 years. You had 2 kids there. Did you go straight from there to Alaska, or was there something in between?
We went from Germany to graduate school. I got a teaching certificate, a master's in guidance and counseling, and then we went to Alaska.
And I had already gotten my degree just before we were.
And tell me about that decision to move to Alaska, because that's a massive decision. And I imagine that your current/future children were you weighed that heavily in your mind. Was that a hard decision to make, considering the church is not very well established there? It's so remote. I mean, it's Alaska, right?
I applied for jobs after graduate school, was offered one in East Carbon City up by Price. And we went there and interviewed. They actually offered me a job, and we thought, I don't know if I want to live by Price. No offense to anybody in Price, but just decided not to.
It just didn't feel right.
It didn't.
It was not a calm feeling. And so he then got just out of the blue, got an offer to go to Alaska. And I had an older sister and her husband that lived in Anchorage and spoke very highly of it. And we thought, why not?
I had fished out of Seattle, and I'd been to Alaska. So at least we kind of knew a little bit about it. But we were going to a little town and didn't know what it was like. And as it turned out, there was a branch there. And 6 weeks after we got there, I was called as branch president. And so away we went. And it turned out to be church-wise a wonderful place.
6 weeks.
Yeah, they were scrambling.
Yeah, it really turned out well. At one point, we tried to leave, but we just couldn't. As we went down to look for jobs, it didn't work out. I'm so glad we came back. Alaska for our children was such a great place for them to be raised. They were outdoors all the time. They had friends, good people, not members of the church, but good people. And Alaskans will help you. And so do people in all states. But because the weather can be so destructive in Alaska and temperatures, people are always watching out for you. Yeah, that was a great thought.
It was great school, had 500 in the school, 9 through 12. All my 6 kids graduated from Homer High. And we had kids that, not a lot, but we had kids that went to Stanford and went to Harvard. And so the school was very strong. And so I felt that educationally they could do really well. And so when they came out, all of them went to college and then got in and away we went. So yeah, it was a bit of a worry, but it turned out so well. And we're so grateful we did it.
I think it was harder for my parents, but it forced us as a couple to depend on us as a couple. And no, his parents were international; they were gone, but we worked to support one another, and people around us were supportive. But it was us in that situation.
We didn't have family nearby.
Would you guys consider yourselves like the adventurous type? Is a move to Alaska in your DNA, or is that really not like you at all?
It is in his DNA. He will choose the most. He likes a different route. Okay. He wants something different every time. Me, I like to be very comfortable. I don't like change a lot, but I love him. And so it was exciting. And earlier in my life, I was much more adventuresome, but still he was the leading force for that. But I've blessed my life.
You know, was it East Carbon City, and it was out by Price, and you just didn't feel right. Like, I hope there's a time in the next life when we can look back and like, okay, why didn't that feel right? I'm just so curious. Like, what could have happened? What would have played out there?
And it just felt so right with Alaska. Both of us knew. We have friends that are from the Price area, and they loved it and enjoyed it. We would have been fine, I think. But
okay, so how much time had elapsed between the time you made the decision to move to Alaska and then you actually had to move?
I left in 3 days.
Yeah, I think it was more like 2.
Wow.
So it was very quick. But he had to find a place for me to live, and there was nothing available in Alaska. So it was 2 or 3 weeks before I could go with the children.
Okay, you went first and you started working and scouting it out. And did you end up buying a home first, or did you rent?
We rented it first.
Yes.
Okay.
There was nothing to buy. He had to actually live with people when he got up there. That's where members of the church were very kind. There was nothing to rent, nothing. But yes, and then finally we could rent for a family, or actually members of the church allowed us to live with them, and then lived in their house till we could get a home.
Okay. And then what was going through your head your first Sunday in that small branch, and how many people were there, give or take?
I went in, there were more brethren in priesthood in the congregation than there was on the stand.
Wow.
No, wait a minute. There were more brethren on the stand.
On the stand.
Than in the congregation.
Than in the congregation. And they all had cowboy boots and bolos.
And bolo ties.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking 15 people in church?
Maybe 20 at church.
How many kids did you have?
3 at the time.
3.
And young, I imagine?
Yeah, very young. It's not in school yet. Probably about 4, nearly 5, down to just a few months old.
Okay. And I mean, back then, there weren't really tools for seeing how established the church was in an area. I'm sure you had assumptions, but did you have any second thoughts, regrets? What are we doing here? Or were you just rolling with it?
So many regrets. So many second thoughts. What's happened? It snowed on Halloween. Yes. Yeah. But Alaskan people in our ward, people around us, not even members, watched over us, cared for us. People would pick us up. Just driving on that snow and ice.
We only had one car.
We were just enveloped in their love. They wanted us to stay. And I really feel like it was the place for us. Took me a while. Jamie, I think, was more at home or comfortable with it. But with the little children, that was hard. But he was called to be branch president 6 weeks later.
Oh, man. Okay. So what month and year did you move there?
Fall of 76, September of 76.
Yeah, right before long winter. Was that a tough winter, especially as a stay-at-home mom?
I don't remember exactly, but I do know we were just trying to get a home that was ours. So when November came and we finally had our own home, that was such a joy. So I don't remember being depressed. I just remember being excited that we had our own place. We were starting this little family unit. I think it was okay.
Yeah, it was.
So what was it like being branch president right away? I mean, I suppose maybe the stresses were less because it was just a small branch, or is the opposite true?
So stresses were less because it was small. And again, the people were very committed and very willing and make a call, and they would accept it and they would do their best. And also I having, been at BYU and having some church experience kind of outside of Alaska, I kind of knew how things could run. So I was able to, I think, add some expertise to the branch that they just hadn't had because they were there and didn't have that experience. And I enjoyed it. And I, of course, got into people's lives and helped them and those kinds of things. So no, it was a good experience.
Was there ever a story or a moment within that first year where you were unsure, you were having a tough time, and then there was a turning point, like someone helped you or something happened where you thought, wow, this is home for us. This is the right decision?
I think there were probably several, because there were tough times and then there were good times. The first few weeks or months were hard because we were living from pillar to post. We lived with a couple in our little branch, and then they went on vacation and we had their house for a little while, and then they needed us to move. We had no place to go. Our house was supposed to be available, and it was not anyone's fault other than it just took a while for their new house to be done. But at that point, we had another set of friends. And do you know who Jewel is?
Yeah.
We lived with her family. Yeah. We lived with Jewel's family.
No way. They were on that TV show, right? Her family?
Yeah. Otz Gilcher. He was married to Nedra at the time.
Alaska, the Last Frontier. We love that show.
Yeah. And so we lived with Otz and Nedra and their little children. And Jewel was just a baby. But they were so good to us. And Otz is just his own person. They treated us with such love. And Otz was one of Jamie's counselors in the branch presidency. They're not inactive. They're not
involved in the church.
Stepped away now, but
yeah,
their support, as well as a couple by the name of Turkington, Alan and Joyce Turkington, they made a difference. People make a difference in your lives and helpful. So yes, I think it happened often. It wasn't just one major event, but there were several when you'd get down and somebody would step in and say, how can I help? And it was important.
I love that you said people make the difference, because my wife and I, at least in our first 10 years of marriage, we moved a lot, and people would ask us, like, and my wife grew up moving every 2 years. And so, where's your favorite place to live? What places do you love to live or hate to live? And it's like, you can't make a blanket statement like that. Like, San Diego has perfect weather. At Omaha, Nebraska is not known for being great. But like, if you see the good, it all comes down to the people. Like, you could live in Siberia, and if you're with amazing people, then Siberia is a great place to live, right? Like,
just like Homer, Alaska.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You could be living in your dream scenario with your family and friends all around, but if you don't connect with those around you, then it's not a great place to live for you.
Right.
So
and that's what's going to be good about heaven, I think.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah. We're going to be with people like us.
Yep.
Okay. So let's start talking about your children. So it's 76. You have 3 small kids. Tell us about your kids and how far apart they are in age.
We have 3 girls and 3 boys.
We planned it that way.
And they're about 13 and a half, 14 years apart.
Okay.
So from the first one to the end, the first 2 were really quick. They were 14 and a half months apart. Next one was 3 years later. And then they came about every couple of years. And it wouldn't be as good for me to have children after certain ages. So that's about the time we stopped. But I had a real direct and a little whisper from the Spirit that I knew we were done with our last one. So,
but prior to that, we had 5. We talked about, should we have another child? Well, 5's plenty. And both of us had an experience. We were sitting around our kitchen table, and both of us in our minds heard a cry. And
a baby cry.
A baby cry. And we turned to each other and said, did you hear that?
And our other children did not.
And we said, did you hear that? And we both said yes. And we both knew there was another child that was waiting to come to our home. And so soon thereafter, we got pregnant, and we had our number 6, for which we're super grateful.
And our number 5, I'd had a ruptured disc in the pregnancy. And my doctor, he was a good friend. He was not a member, but a good friend. And he sat me down after I gave birth to our number 5. And he said, I know that you're LDS and you might want to have more, but let me impress upon you, you need to be careful and think about maybe this should be your last one.
Discouraged us in a very kind way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that sixth pregnancy go?
Well, yeah, it was fine.
That's a beautiful story about hearing the baby cry. And as you tell it, I remember you telling me that on my mission. I'm glad you reminded me. It's so interesting. Like sometimes we feel a prompting that we should have another kid or that we should stop having kids. And I feel like when it's that obvious, like the Lord is intervening for a reason. You can go read the scriptures and you could see times where the Lord's like, hey, good luck. Yeah, I'm here for you. You're on your own. And the heavens are closed. And then sometimes the Lord is like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is actually really important. I'm going to step in here and make sure that we get this right.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of that.
With her birth, the pregnancy was fine, but with her birth, it was a very difficult to deliver her. It was hard until the doctor found that her little hand was up by her head.
Oh.
I always told her, you were saying, I want to come. I want to come.
Had her hand raised.
So she was
I can
so
picture
ready.
it. I can picture it. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back, was anything different about that sixth child? Like, do you think that was for a specific reason, or it was just like that made your family whole?
It made our family whole. After I gave birth to her, we were in Alaska, you have to remember, and we didn't have phones at the time. The school had phones, but people didn't. And if you did, it was a party line. So a lot of CBs. As I just gave birth to her, they said, oh, she was born at 10:04. And in my mind, I thought 10:04, over and out. And that was like, it's done.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I love that. My wife and I had a similar experience with our fourth. We thought we wanted a fourth, but we weren't sure. And I was listening to a church podcast, and it was an older couple speaking about how they had kids. And one of their kids, they named after an ancestor. They felt a strong impression that the purpose for that was to make sure that child was more appreciative of their ancestors for whatever reason. And when I heard that, I had a strong prompting, like, we need to have a fourth child, and it's going to be a boy, and we need to name him after an ancestor. And we had never done that with our other three children. And so I went home and I told my wife, and she's like, okay. And so we had a fourth, and it was a boy, and we named him after my third great grandfather, Stephen Chadwick Perry. His name's Perry. So those tender mercies are very, very helpful.
How wonderful.
And they mean a lot to you.
Yeah.
They just
Yes.
so personalized.
They are. Yeah, they really are. So 6 kids over 14 years, give or take, mostly 2 years apart with a couple exceptions.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, that's the most broad question. We could speak for 48 hours about it, but what was your parenting experience like? We'll start broad and then we'll go a little more narrow.
Our parenting experiences was wonderful. Our joke is they were wonderful kids. They say, how do you have such great kids? And I tell everybody, because they came that way. Certainly we had difficulties, but they were wonderful kids. We found that the first 2, we were a little stricter to, and trying our parenting skills that we hadn't developed as well as we should have. Looking back, we think, well, maybe we should have recycled the first kids a little later, and then they could have had a little bit more flexibility and not quite as tight as we ran.
We were more rigid as young parents, I think.
Yes.
Is there a story you could tell that kind of exemplifies the rigidity, or an example?
This is when our son was probably an early teen, or maybe he wanted to go to a birthday party on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him he could choose.
But we normally didn't do much on Sunday, stayed home and tried to keep it Sabbath pretty tight.
And we tried to tell him and teach him that. So I told him, you get to choose. And so he chose to go. And then I just nailed him. And so I would have never done that with the younger kids. They just felt like they were in a little box, but they were good about it. I mean, kids are resilient, and I've apologized to this son, and he said, Mom, I'm fine. I'm fine. But yeah.
I feel like you could make a whole podcast just about how strict you should be or should not be with your children.
I agree. And it changes from child to child.
I know, or from family to family, or personality to personality. Yeah. It's just something we wrestle with every day. I think it'd be really interesting to ask, 100,000 parents of grown children and just do a study and say, do you regret being more strict or less strict, and why? So I guess I'll start. You'll be the first of 100,000. What, in general, what would you say? Could you have been more strict or less strict, and why?
I think we could have been less strict, especially with the older kids. And I think it's like Geneil's story. We were trying to put them in a little bit of a box, and keep them pretty tight. Fortunately, they responded really well. Nobody ever really took us on or quit on us because of that. And so I would say we could be, nevertheless, we were loving parents. They knew we loved them and became less strict. And we just got kind of tired. And
The more children you have, the more not lenient, but the more relaxed you become. You can't work with all the little details that you did in the first one or two.
and pick our battles a little more carefully, not take them on, and take them on's way too strong, but be a little tight on some things and a little looser on other things. So that's one thing that I wished we'd learned a little earlier. I think we learned it better later.
Listening to the Spirit a little more when you're up against the wall and you think you have all the answers and then you find you don't. Because of our children, they were such good children in so many ways. They had problems too, but I don't think I would have been any more strict, but I don't think it would have been wise to be a whole bunch more lax either. So we kind of found a sweet spot, but it would vary from time to time.
And from kid to kid.
It's so tough because we all know families that raise their kids very strictly and their kids were great. And then they leave the house and they go off the rails.
Yeah.
Right. But then we know families that the parents are not strict at all. And the kids kind of go off the rails while they're still at home.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do? And like, there's an optimistic and a pessimistic way of looking at everything. And I think what you guys did is more common than not, where you start strict, your intentions are good the whole time, and then you get less strict. I feel like I'm doing the same as a parent who's still in the middle of this. The pessimistic way is to look at that as, oh, well, you're just getting lazier. You just don't care as much. You know, you get tired and the optimistic way is, you know, you just see the bigger picture and you put love at the forefront and not the letter of the law at the forefront.
That's a really good comment, Chris.
You hit the
Thank you.
nail right on the head with love. We had a family in Alaska that the parents were so strict, but the children didn't go off the rails when they left the home. But their love was tangible within that family. So I don't know exactly how that all works. I think that's one of the major portions is that you're known, you're loved, accepted, and you have fun too.
Yeah. I'd love to hear that other family, like, how was their love tangible? How did that show itself?
He's passed away by now. Tiffany Quiners, that was the Quiners.
That's right.
They had a large family, like 10 children. And I'm trying to think of, an example of their strictness is our son was friends with one of their daughters, and I taught them both in seminary, and they're good kids. And so our son Cam just asked her to prom, and they just as friends. But the father said no, he would prefer that his daughter didn't go to school dances because he felt that they were not a good
influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was frustrating for
him. Yet our son was a good kid, that was not anything.
Yeah.
And I think another side of that is that their mom was very much the other way and very loving, touching, helpy. He was very supportive and very loving and very quiet. The combination of the two worked, and the kids turned out well.
How would you say that their love was evident, like from the outside looking in?
Oh, that's such a good question. I just knew it was an interest in their lives. They knew what their children were doing. They were very involved in a positive way. They did things together as a family. They traveled.
They built a house together.
Yes. So they were bonded over projects and travel. And so I think that's an important piece also.
Oh, I'm just learning so much. I'm thinking of a family in my ward that I don't know how, I can't explain it, but it just seems like they love each other so much. I remember in 2019, our kids were 9, 7, 5, and 3. And it didn't seem like they got along. Despite everything we were trying, like it just didn't seem like we were close. And it was frustrating to my wife and I. We talked about it regularly. And then COVID happened. We were locked in together, and that really made us come together. And I feel like ever since then, we've only gotten more close. I wonder if we just unlocked something here. And that's like, whether more strict or less strict, like there must be a lot of love and like it'll all work out.
We jumped ahead as we looked at your questions, and this is jumping ahead a little bit. But one thing that we did as a family is we did trips, big trips. And they don't have to be trips. We have a son-in-law who rebuilt engines with his dad. We have another son-in-law that bonded over football with his dad. It is a bonding process that we did ours in the car driving from Alaska to Utah. And it was fun. It was great. Or we traveled to Europe as a family. But there are ways to bond with that love that covers a multitude of sinning as parents.
I think For example, since we live so far away, it was very common for us, and having summers off, to take off on a Monday, and jump in the car, all of us, and drive to Utah and be here Saturday afternoon. And we'd stay for 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Then we'd jump in the car and drive back. We'd camp, and that was just a family adventure.
We camp on the way down, but live with
like on the Alcan.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
That sounds amazing.
It was. And I always remember that I'd always still myself up because the first day or so in the car, a little bickering.
Was hard.
A little too, she's touching me. He can't sit in my seat. He's reading my book. But after a day or so, that all went away. They helped make set camp and those kinds of things. And so I think also a spinoff of that is we had the Alaskan oil spill, and that was not too far from our house. Anyway, one summer, I was looking for work for summer, and it was really hard for our kids to get jobs because we'd take them to go on this trip. And so they couldn't mow lawns because they'd be gone for 5 weeks or whatever. And so I asked around, and somebody said, Jamie, can you paint my house? And I said, sure, because I built 2 or 3 houses and helped build the house. Anyway, so I started a little painting business, and my kids were my employers. And so employees. And so we'd paint for a couple of 3 weeks or a month, and then we'd jump in the car and come down and see grandma, and then we'd go back up, paint another house. And it was just the family painted together. And
we bonded and would laugh. Yeah. And they were good and hard times, but they were good memories.
They were together times.
That's amazing. When you were painting together, did you ever worry about their work ethic? Like, was it like, come on, kids? Like sometimes when I'm doing chores with my kids in the yard, it's like, I forget that they're, 8 years old. What are you doing?
Yes, but these guys, they were
older children by about that time.
13 or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, after a while, they could outpaint me. And it was just amazing.
And they made very good money because we split it, so they loved making the money. And so it was more than they could have made at any job. So, but yes, you do. I remember taking some of our youngers and they didn't do well. And you just have to remind yourself, okay, they don't want to do that. That's okay.
Back to the strictness question, sometimes I wrestle with this. Like, I really try to take an internal perspective. And so if one of my children is speaking at me disrespectfully, sometimes my wife's reaction to that is just like, okay, I'm just going to pretend like you didn't say that. I'm just going to respond in love. And then my reaction is, you can't talk to me like that. No, we're not doing that. Right. So we react very differently. And my argument is, if I don't respond like that, then it'll be normalized, and they'll think they can always talk to me like that. But like my wife's argument, I think is just as good. I genuinely don't know which one's better. So I would ask you two, like, how did you react like that when your children? Because sometimes we see children speak to their parents in public disrespectfully, and the judgmental thought that goes through my head, at least, is, wow, I can't believe you let your kids talk to you like that. And now that I have older kids, it's like, maybe they're not letting them. Maybe the kids just do it because they have agency.
Great question.
And that's the hard thing. And they are practicing their agency, I think, in many ways. But I had great parents. And when I was a teenager, I was mouthy to my mother, rebellious a little bit. And she was like your wife. But there's also a fine line. I knew that I needed to respect her as well. I would kind of get on her case, but she would listen to me and my mouthy mouth, and then she would just give me a couple of ideas and walk away. And then it was up to me. I found I would mull over what she would say to me, and the Spirit would work with me. This is an older teenager. I don't think it would work all the time with young ones, but then the Spirit would help me to see what she was saying was true. But if she had have yelled at me, I think I would have felt like that it was my right to be angry at her because she was angry at me. And I would have used my agency well. Let me give you another example. One of our children, we had some problems with this child, and they went to prom and were given us for a certain time that they should be back. And they
curfew.
The curfew, they were not back. They didn't come for quite a while. Finally, when they were home, I was livid, and I was not using my good parenting style. And I yelled at them, just really, and stomped off to their room. And I didn't know what else to do. So
Mhm.
I knelt and I prayed. I said, Heavenly Father, what do I do? I don't want to lose this child. Impression was, go apologize. And I was like, what? Yeah,
She's in the wrong.
I'm
Yeah.
in the right. But I went in and apologized. And I remember this child turned at me and smirked as I apologized.
Oh.
But
I'm so stressed out for you right now.
I was in control of myself.
Yeah.
Prior, when they come home and I yelled at them, I was not in control. And so I was doing my own spirited service in my own self, as well as taking away her opportunity, or it's almost taking away her agency, that she couldn't feel bad about it. And so as I apologized, I felt free. And we were just talking to her
Yeah.
about this, and she doesn't remember a lot. She apologized for smirking. But anyway, she said, well, Mom, what was one of your hardest times in parenting? And I said, it was when I lost control of myself and was unkind to you guys in my words, even more than your reactions to me. It was that I was that I did not follow what I knew was best. So sometimes I would say, follow the spirit that you're feeling. Sometimes it's right to say, you don't talk to me like that, but not with an angry voice. It's there's a respect. I respect you, and I would hope you would respect me. There's a, whatever the spirit is telling you.
Yeah.
Other times you accept their tone of voice and, work it through. But when I started to roar, that's when I feel bad.
Yeah. It's like when you respond, you can't talk to me like that. Then it's like saying, okay, we're going to normalize being disrespectful to each other now. That's the standard.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Interesting. Because there's been a time with the same child where I've said, you can't talk to me like that. And they've said, you're talking to me like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't, you're too smart. Dang
They
it.
are so smart.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh man, this is so good. So, of your 6 children, was there ever a time when raising them, let's say at the teenager age, when you thought you were really concerned, and without having to name names, where it's like, I don't know how this one's gonna do when they leave the nest?
Oh yeah.
And I'd love to hear stories about that.
So this one child, she was taking us on. She was running with some friends. We got a call one time from the police that she was at a party at a house. And so we went and picked her up and brought her home and grounded her for a month. And so we had our times with her, finished high school, and we were glad to send her off to college. We just didn't quite know what to do. She was still going to church, but she was hanging with some friends that we didn't approve of and doing some things that we didn't quite approve of.
What college did she go to, or what state?
She went to Arizona.
She went to Arizona.
Okay.
She went to Flagstaff.
That's kind of an interesting area. That's a little subculture there.
Yeah.
So,
a good fit for an Alaskan.
It was.
Yeah.
But we took her down and dropped her off, and we kept touch with her and tried to keep communications open. We worried about her, and she got it together, kind of in spite of us.
Well, and another story with that, but this child doesn't remember, but I remember wondering and worrying because they were not going to church and not
at college,
at college and having their own friends. And I was glad I didn't know what was going on. I knew about the only thing I could do was go to the temple. And we went to the temple as much as we could in Alaska. And then it dawned on me, I had to let her go. And I remember sitting down, she was older, and I just said, I want you to know how much I love you. I want you to be forever with us, but I realize that you get to choose. And I was with my whole heart, I was telling her this. And I said, so whether you stay within, the church circle that we have, it's up to you, but we would love to have you. But if you don't, then it will be so hard without you.
But we would still love you.
Yeah, we'll still love you. But the fact is, she doesn't remember that conversation. But I remember it. And it let me let her go and trust her to Heavenly Father. I am not in control of how my kids turn out. Heavenly Father can work with them in Christ, but I'm only there kind of as a to help them grow through. But they want them back as much as I do. And when I finally gave her over to Him for me, let it go. And then probably a year and a half into college, you just started to go to church, and it's never stopped since. So we're really grateful.
When you had that conversation, it was within a year or so of her leaving the house?
It was while she was at the university. She came back for Christmas.
Okay.
So it was during
Okay.
that time. And I was trying to come to grips with that she might choose to go another path. And I needed to come to grips with that. And I needed to love her no matter what, unconditionally.
In looking back, were there ever signs when she was younger, even before 10 or before age 15, that she might make that path later on?
No, not really. She's a very loving child. I was teaching seminary and doing, so I wish that I would have been a little more, focused on her. But, you look back and you can, you don't beat yourself up. That's another thing. You give yourself grace. But anyway, it wasn't until high school. And I think it was some friends that influenced her, even friends in the church that influenced her. Girls' camp, for one thing.
You're getting it one step ahead of me, because that was my next question, is how big of a role do friends play?
And some of children's huge. In her life, it was huge. So
yeah,
others, not so much.
And some of our children's friends, ward was small. We eventually became a ward, and I was the bishop. Our ward was relatively small, and so the young women or young men, there weren't very many, and often they weren't necessarily good friends just because they were kind of different. But some of our kids, they had friends that were outside the church that they still keep in contact with and who are wonderful people and just love them dearly. And so they were an influence for good, even though their friends were not members in that sense. And this one child, she had friends that were kind of taking her on the wrong path. And
we tried to have them in our home too, but another of our children would bring their friends home, and one of them would say, "Oh, can we have family prayer with you? Can we have prayer?" And so some reacted very well, but others felt like that we were, narrow and it wasn't a good situation. So,
and we tried to have their friends come into our home. One of our children had a girlfriend. Anyway, we knew she wasn't the best influence, but we tried to have her come to our house and come to dinner. And so we tried to develop a relationship with her and him, even though if we'd gotten to choose, we wouldn't have chosen that he ran with her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
And it turned out it was fine.
It turned out
that broke out.
Yeah, he's the one that broke it off. But still, this girl, she is a good girl. She was looking for family. She was looking for, but we needed to give him as a teenager. They need to have abilities to choose and
we knew
practice.
Kind of a risk running with her. But we wouldn't take that chance. We trusted, that.
You can only do so much. And I feel like you two are ahead of your time, because I think the culture used to be a few decades ago where if your kid strayed off the path, it was like, okay, all right, you're not following the covenant path anymore, so we don't need to have much of a relationship anymore. But I think that's changing for the better, where it's like, hey, I love you. My preference is that you're in the church, but I love you. And you can always come home. And it feels like you two were ahead of your time there.
We never would have cut off relationships. I saw it in my family. My parents were the same way. And so it was something that and I think Jamie's parents were the same way. You don't cut off relationships because somebody doesn't do.
We, for example, have a grandson who's a gay and has left the church and is not very supportive of it. And we make it real clear, and we work really hard at letting him know how much we love him. We love to see him. We love to hear from him. We like to know what's going on. We love him dearly, even though he's chosen not to be part of the church for his own personal reasons.
And I love this grandson. I love him.
Yes, we do. He's our oldest.
That's beautiful. So I'll ask you the reverse of that previous question. Was there a child that seemed to be perfectly on the straight and narrow up until they left the home, and then they kind of surprised you afterwards?
No. They were consistent. When they left the home, that's who they were, and pretty much stayed. Yeah, there were no surprises.
And 5 out of our 6 went on missions, and that was real. And they made that, the girls particularly kind of surprised us. Well, Mom and Dad, I want to go on a mission, and we said, okay. I mean, that wasn't the port for girls, but Geneil had never gone, but they wanted to go, and as it turned out, it changed their lives and added so much as missions do.
They were able to serve, but it polished them. It polished all of our children.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
The story we tell is one daughter went on a mission and came back, and as she was giving her homecoming, we turned to each other and said, "Who is that girl?" I mean, she was just so polished and so mature
She
and
was
so together.
Together before she left, but she came.
Wow.
Yeah,
We were
both.
just,
Yeah.
Anyway,
she was just amazing.
a mission is good. It's hard, but it's good.
What about college? How much of a strategic effort did you play in trying to influence where they went to school? Did you gently nudge them towards BYU? Was it not even in the conversation?
Well, I, being a high school counselor, spent a lot of time with lots of kids relative to choosing a school. And we've had this conversation with our kids. We said, "Why did you go to college?" And they all said, "Well, we just all knew we were going to go to college." In other words, it wasn't a major decision to go. Now, where they went, but it was just really interesting that they all just decided that they were going to go to college, and they've all graduated, and most of them have masters. It was just part of our culture of our life, I guess. And that's what they said.
But to go to BYU, of course, that's where we went. So, and we loved that. But it was very difficult to get in on BYU. And some of the teachers at the high school, one of our children was valedictorian, and they felt like they should go to a more high power school. And so this child listened to him and went to a different school, but was not real happy and went to BYU second semester. He had a college scholarship there if he wanted it. So the other people had influence, but several went to BYU. Some went to BYU-I, some went to Utah State. One, NAU is another one. But we pretty much allowed them, or just not allowed them. We're just going, where do you want to go?
And my job, of course, at school was, where do you want to go to school, and what are you looking for? And here's how to get scholarships, and here's how to apply. And so I was very knowledgeable in a variety of schools. And that's why I just supported them and kind of where they wanted to go.
All the universities are strong institute programs too. And that's the NAU one got involved with institute and really had a good time.
It's a little tricky because my wife and I both went to Alabama, and it was great and we loved it. And they have a great football team, and we go to a football game every year as a family. So our kids naturally love it. But the church is very weak there.
Yeah.
And so our kids are like, "Oh, I want to go to Alabama." And we're like, "Okay, Alabama's great. It's great. But like BYU is great." So it's like we're trying to like recruit away from our school, but not too obviously.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And the other thing is, we would come back to Utah a lot to see family, and they were on the campus at BYU.
And we went to all the campuses. We went to the U. We went up to Utah State. It was really interesting. Just a while ago, we went down to Snow College, and we realized that we didn't put any emphasis in that. It would have been a great choice.
Now, my grandpa was president of Snow College, so
anyway,
and the daughter-in-law went there, so
it would have been fine, but we didn't even think of it. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah. Looking back, what would you say your greatest strengths and weaknesses were as parents?
We've talked about this, and our kids have said this, is consistency. Our home was very consistent. We had dinner every night. We had prayers at night. We tried to read the scriptures at night. We had family home evening. There was just kind of a family-ness that was just very consistent. And our kids have always said, but as we look back on our home, we could always count on those kinds of things happening.
I think so. And I had the pleasure and the opportunity to stay home with our children. And so that was nice. Later on, when our youngest was in school for a while, I did little things on the side. But so I was there, but it is consistent and being positive. My husband is a positive person, and I work at it. But being in a home that's consistent and you have some positivity there. And even though, like, we joke about how often we tried to read the scriptures consistently and we'd fail, and we'd set goals. And we had traditions of, on New Year's Eve, we would review the year and write it all down. And then we would make goals for the next year. And then also Jamie would give them each a blessing, a father's blessing. But we always would set the goal of reading the scriptures, but we often didn't make it, but they remembered that we were trying, at least.
I think also another consistency in our home was we supported the kids. Our kids were in music. Many of them were in sports. And every concert we'd go to as many games as we could. We were very supportive of their life outside of our home to show them that we supported them and we loved them. And that was a way that we kind of did that.
I like that. Did all the kids play an instrument?
Yes.
Well, some sang.
Well, all
Okay.
of them played an instrument at some point in their life. They didn't always stay with it. Most of our children played the piano. We have one that didn't want to really play the piano, and so we didn't make them.
But 5 did.
So
Okay.
They got lessons for them. Yeah, and then they either sang in the choir or played an instrument in the band, or
yeah,
it was pretty. Yeah, music was part of.
as with sports.
What about weaknesses?
Our weaknesses, well, again, that was when I would let myself, if I would yell, kind of have myself get out of control. I guess I think that would be the weakness that I would say. I can't remember. We wrote some weaknesses down.
Yeah.
Remember, James?
Yeah, and another one is I would get angry. Not often, but on occasion, I spanked my kids when they were younger, and I would get angry, and I wished I hadn't. So that was something.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that with the kids, and the kids said, yeah, it was just you, Dad. And it wasn't often. I wished I hadn't gotten angry.
How do you do that? Like practically, how is that possible?
I know it. And I guess the only way to do that is to think about it, and kind of they do something and you just get angry. And I on occasion, I remember they do something, I get so angry, I would turn and walk away. I didn't do that with buttons. I wished I had, but I would turn and walk away because I knew I was not in control.
Yeah.
And then I would kind of take a few breaths and kind of sort it through a little bit. And then I would come back and I could deal with it much better. I did that a few times, but I wished I'd done it more.
And I think a couple of ways is that if you've got to prepare yourself, if you're having an uptight time, I found reading scripture saying prayers help. Jamie and I's relationship was critical. We were on the same page most of the time, and our relationship didn't take a lot of energy because we just fed it a lot. And that way we had a lot to give our children. I think if we're constantly having to work on a relationship, and I know you need like date night and those things, but I'm talking about we were just comfortable with each other, and that freed us up. But you still, with anger, going back to that, I tell my children now, I said, man, if I'd known what incredible individuals you were, I'd have treated you better. And they laugh. But your children will be amazing adults.
I think the statement you made is so profound. It's like you were so comfortable with each other. You didn't have to expend a lot of energy on each other. You had it for your kids. Like, that's very profound.
Yeah.
And then we could talk about stuff and then didn't need to worry about the relationship of us getting in the way of that.
Yeah. I've never thought of it that way. Like having struggles in your relationship, competing with the relationship with your children. But it does. There's only so much energy, love to go around, right?
Yep. You're exactly right.
You do need to feed and you need to work with one another. It's kind of it's a balance.
Yeah, sure. We've already kind of touched on this question a couple times, but is there anything you would have done differently, like zooming out, other than, trying to be less angry and all those things? Anything you regret or that you would change?
I've thought about that. No, I'm sure there are little things that we could have done, but
I'm a negative person by nature. And that was something I wish that I would have worked on earlier. Because some of my children are negative, others are positive. And so I don't know if that's, but for me, you're just happier if you're not negative. It's just, life is better. And so not only for me to live a better life, but for my children.
I feel like having a negative disposition, but paired with the self-awareness of that, like self-awareness equals you're working on it, right? Like it's top of mind. Like that's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Is just work on it forever.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, forever.
Yeah. Was there anything that seemed really critical, really important to your parenting strategy that just shifted over time?
Again, when we talked about the structure, we were more structured and more tight at the beginning and to keep the commandments kinds of focus. Whereas later we didn't do that quite so much. We were looser and we didn't wear our Sunday clothes all day Sunday, for example. And we just tried to be more comfortable with our kids and their behaviors and what was going on. Is one observation I'd make.
What was the time in your parenting journey that brought you just incredible joy? Like maybe the best memory you ever had as a family. Maybe it was a trip. Maybe it was a comment. Maybe it was a whole year.
It's the little ones. Some of them are like family home evenings, we were very consistent with family home evenings. We rarely, if ever, missed it because there were certain promises that, that your kids would stay true. I don't think they make those promises anymore about the family home evening, but our family home evenings were not always fantastic. Maybe once a year, we'd have these memorable times. But it's because we did it every week, and they knew that. Another really memorable time was one of the times when we were giving blessings to, Jamie was giving blessings to our children, and our oldest daughter was just small. So it was early in the
5,
marriage.
6 years old.
And you finished telling.
So I gave her a blessing and she started to cry. And I looked at her and she said, Dad, why am I crying?
She was embarrassed.
And she was embarrassed. And I said, that's the Spirit. That's what I told you. And that's what the Heavenly Father is touching your heart, that you can know that this is from Him. And that was just a real wonderful teaching experience, and experience that we all had together as she learned what the Spirit felt like.
That's beautiful.
On birthdays, we would have our children sit up on the table,
Kitchen table.
And we'd put a cape on them and a crown. And we'd all say 2 nice things about them.
And they'd hold a spoon or something as a scepter. And then we'd go around and everybody would say 2 nice things. And the rule was you couldn't say they're a good hugger and kisser.
Because that's what the little kids would
That was
say.
our family joke.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Why am I crying? That's just such a powerful question.
Yeah.
Especially from a child.
It was the little things that you remember. They're not these big, fantastic. We did fantastic trips and they were memorable and we built relationships. But it's the little small things that you really don't plan for that just pop up.
I'm thinking of the trip that we took as a family. We saw all 50 states in 60 days. It was the best 2 months of my life. We had an RV and it was just the best. But we saw, you name it. Like we saw everything. We went to Tahoe, we went to Alaska, Hawaii. We saw the most amazing things. But like the times that I think back to were like just driving down the highway at night and the kids just sitting up, not in their seatbelts, just talking, just hanging out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are the best moments.
I remember we had humor in the car. We'd be so boring, and you know what it's like to drive to Alaska. It's daunting.
I've done it.
But one of our sons, I remember one time we were all just sitting there and all of a sudden the kids are just laughing in the backseat. And I turned around. One of our sons, he had clean underwear, but he put it on the top of his head.
Wore it like a hat.
Those are just fun times and special times, bonding times.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like you got to be intentional about these things.
Yes.
You really do.
And as intentional as you are, still you don't always get the outcome, but you've got to be ready for when the outcome hits.
Yep. Maybe you don't get the outcome in this life.
Yeah.
Right? At least.
Good point.
Conversely, was there a parenting moment specifically where you were just like, this is too much. This is too hard. This is more than I thought I was signing up for.
I'm sure there were times, but we've been out of the game for our oldest is 54 now. So I don't remember.
I don't either. I'm sure that we had those discussions. This is hard, but I don't remember them because the good times showed through.
They outweigh the bad.
Yeah.
So I don't remember it.
Well, it's just the fact that you don't remember it is a powerful answer because you do remember the good times, right? It's like you answered the question without answering. Raising kids in the 70s, 80s, 90s, in many ways, it's the same and very different from raising kids today.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone that's raising a 1-year-old or an 18-year-old or anything in between?
I think to love them and to be consistent, that the kid can always count on either the rules or the love, that they can count on you responding that way, and that they can count on that. I don't know. That's something that kind of comes to mind.
I'm trying to think, definitely love, but also you have such a short time when they're young, and that's when you teach values and reach out and spend time. And then as they become teenagers, you got to let them go a little bit and allow them to make mistakes and just love them through that. But also to be kind to yourself because you're going to make mistakes, but they're resilient. And the other thing is learn to apologize to your children.
Mm-hmm.
When you make mistakes, say, I'm sorry. It's a good role model in it. And it helps you as well. One of our daughters was telling us, a friend of theirs, their little child was talking to their mom and saying, Mom, I like it when you apologize to us, but Daddy never apologizes.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
But it
Wow.
helps, because we make mistakes. And so, yeah, I did that wrong. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do better. I think children would respond very well to that.
I love that. So in looking back, what if I were to force you to assign a percentage to nature or nurture? What is your argument? So it's like, is it 80% nature, 20% nurture, 50-50? What do you think?
Wow.
Wow.
I think we say our kids came that way. And I think because those that are on this earth, they had to make some real decisions in the spirit world. And so I think we'll get some powerful. So a lot of it is nature, but so much is nurture. I don't know that I could do that, because if you don't give them a safe spot, I would have to say at least 80-20. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was thinking of 70-30
In favor of
nurture, and then
70% is nature.
I would say 70% would be nurture, and then the other 30 is what they.
Interesting.
So we're opposite.
It averages out to 50-50 then.
There you go. There you go.
It's so interesting. I love that. I love that thought experiment. We just don't know.
We don't know. We just do our very best, and I think the Lord makes up the rest. Again, they're His children first.
Have you had any moments in watching your children parent their children that were just light bulb moments, or, oh, wow, like that's me, or that's not me at all, or just any kind of tender moments in witnessing that?
Oh, yes. Oh, heavens.
Our children parent very, very well. And some of them have a different style than their spouse. And I find that our children are more caring, loving, supportive. They do a great job parenting. And I hope that that's in part from what we did. Does that make sense?
I think their spouses do.
Oh, yeah.
They just do it a little differently.
Sure.
But some of our grandchildren have some special needs. And I don't know how I would have done with such special needs. And so they're treading new ground. It's not always easy. I love to see our sons sit down and be really gentle with their children. I love to see a gentle father, but that's not always the case. And other times they need to be really firm. And even my daughter-in-laws and my sons-in-laws, they're awesome. And then they do, even though their styles might be a little different, I think as I tell my children and my daughters and sons-in-laws, I'm not allowed, I don't get revelation for your children. I can love them, but I can't tell you how to raise them. Yeah, that's the Lord's.
On occasion, they've asked us our advice relative to something. We're very reluctant to do that. That's not our role to give them advice on how to parent, but we can certainly love our grandkids.
What do you think about raising kids today in this world? The pessimistic way of looking at it is, social media and TikTok and these influences. And the optimistic way of looking at it is, my personal belief is, we've had prophets tell us every generation that you are the chosen generation. You have been kept. And then the next prophet, you have been kept. And it's like, I really feel like we're getting better. Like as a society, like we're up for the challenge. Like it's getting harder and we're getting stronger. What do you think about that?
I think that there's being, as Elder Stevenson said, even though, as you say, it's harder at times, the Lord's pouring out more help toward us. And I think these kids that are coming down are pretty awesome. And I also think that even if they have stepped away from some of the things that we hold dear, you just can't give up hope, because you never know what life will teach them and the Spirit will teach them. And they're still children of God.
And they're still good people. Again, our oldest has stepped away from the church, our oldest grandson. He's a wonderful person. He's going to Duke, Columbia, sorry. And he's going to get his PhD. He's an impressive person. And I'm grateful for that. And he'll be successful, even though it will be kind of in the gospel sense. And I see others of our children growing up. I'm excited to see where they go. Yeah, excited to see kind of how they turn out to be, even more so than they are now.
And I do think, that social media can be damaging, but it can also be good. It's a balance. Again, life is always a balance. It's being positive and being supportive and letting your children know that they can do it. It's giving them the tools to say, yeah, this is hard, but you can do hard things. You've got grit.
So we're positive about the future.
Me too. When I see what's going on in the world, and then I see the youth that I serve with, I'm in the teachers quorum and I taught seminary. There's a disconnect. I look at these kids and I witness them in like high adventure and in church, and when they're being crazy and we're being reverent, and they're such good kids.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
How are you so good in this world? Like, you're better than I was.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not saying much, but I'm very impressed with the youth.
I am too. And they have their struggles, but gosh, that's okay. I think that they need to try and use their agency at some point and try and figure it out, but then to get that testimony, and that testimony will bind them to their Savior. And in many ways, that's going to be the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I'm an optimist. I had such high hopes for this conversation, and they were crushed. They were exceeded by so much.
Thank you.
Like, if no one else ever heard this, I feel so selfishly uplifted, edified. I feel like a better parent than I was an hour ago. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But to be determined. Is there anything you would like to leave listeners with as we part?
The only thing I would think is to say thank you, maybe not to the listeners, but to you, or just to the listeners too. This has caused us to go back and look at our children and our times as active parenting, and what joy it is. It's hard, it's true, but what joy. And when you get to be in your 70s and almost 80s, there is a joy. There's nothing that can be equaled to parenting.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's been a real opportunity to review our parenting and our children. And it's just been such a happy experience. We're so grateful for it.
How blessed we are.
How blessed we are.
I'm glad you said that, because it would be a shame if we went this hour and didn't talk about how joyful parenting is, because
It's
with
true.
all its struggles,
It is.
it's so gratifying.
Yeah.
Do you do a good job at journaling or taking pictures or videos as you raise your kids?
We journal. Both of us have journals, and we have some pictures. Yeah. And I've written a life story up to a point, and I need to keep continuing it. But yeah, we have gotten some stuff down.
Yeah. I need to be better about journaling. I'm good at pictures and videos, and I have like a spiritual journal. When I have a special moment, I write it down, but I'm not very good at journaling otherwise.
I wrote for my parents, my life story up to a certain point, and 3 older children were about leaving the home. The 3 younger were still in the home. And so when I finally published it and gave it up to that point, my 3 younger ones, or especially one of them, said, "Would you finish writing it? You didn't get to write about me. I want to read about me." So there you go. They want to read about how they grew up, what happened, and your memories of them.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I appreciate you too.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
You're a joy from our mission. We just
You are.
love. Yeah.